Now let's get more response what we're seeing on markets in relation to the US strike on those Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend with expectations that Iran will retaliate. Well, let's focus on gold. Brian Chu joining us from the Australian Gold Fund. Brian, welcome back. Good to see you. So interesting, in fact, fairly muted response in the gold market. What did you make of that?
Hi, Andrew. I actually was quite surprised over the weekend when my colleague messaged me and let me know that the US hit Iranian nuclear sites, and that also sunk my call last Tuesday afternoon before the market closed when I said that I didn't expect the US would weigh in on this conflict. But if you look at the price of gold, it has pulled back a little. But in the big scheme of things, as you can see, the US gold price and the Australian gold price, it is still at record highs, and it's slightly lower than what we saw at the end of not last Friday, but the Friday before, when we had the beginning of the Israel-Iran conflict. And we also are seeing that the price of oil, that's jumped a little bit by about 2 or 3%. But again, if you look at the price of oil in the big scheme of things, going back from I think 2021 to now, let's go to that graph. Yeah, you can see that oil is now back at levels similar to what we saw earlier this year, before things kind of tumbled when the US announced that they would increase the supply of oil, and so did the OPEC nations. This has affected the overall profitability that I expect for gold producers, but I think it's still early days at the moment. We need to wait till the next 2 or 3 days before we see Iran's response, what Israel is going to do. In fact, the reading I have of this situation is now that the US has come in and struck the Iranian nuclear facilities, the question is, will Israel be able to pull back on the conflict, given that the premise of their attack on Iran was the nuclear facilities? And if the conflict actually now continues, then the question would be, what was Israel after Iran for beyond what they claim? And I certainly hope that this won't escalate further, and rather that gold and oil pull back from a decrease in the tensions rather than escalate further.
I mean, last time we spoke, Brian, with the expectation from you perhaps that the US wasn't going to get involved, you're also looking at the fact perhaps that gold trade was looking somewhat exhausted. I mean, is that still the case? And perhaps explains why the more sort of muted moves by the gold price in response to what we've seen from the US.
Yeah, so we've seen that the US dollar index, that's dropped to about 97, 98 from about 105 in the wake of Liberation Day. And in the last 4.5 years, as you can see on the graph, gold's actually pulled ahead of the US dollar index because of the reversal in trend for the US dollar since President Trump took office. And we discussed this probably about a month and a half ago about whether this negative correlation between the two will stand. And again, I look at the general expectations of the what the Federal Reserve is going to do. And the meeting last week, they said that the Federal Open Markets Committee is currently split on the decisions on whether to hold rates or to cut rates in light of inflation being a bit slower than expected. Now that the price of oil has gone up, that might actually bring inflation back onto the table. And if that is the case, that might explain why gold's actually not jumping further because whilst you have the short-term geopolitical tensions potentially rising, the Federal Reserve might actually be correct in holding interest rates for now, and that actually would put pressures on gold in its rally.
So, Brian, taking a look at this morning's action, some of those gold stocks coming under some pressure as it is. So,
yes.
what's your outlook then for those producers?
So the ASX Gold Index, that's actually fallen about 8 or 9% last week from its all-time highs on Monday last week, almost same time today. You can see that we've had a triple top for the ASX Gold Index, and currently it's touching the 40-day moving average. I'm using 10, 40, and 200-day moving average because I've been informed in the past year that historically this is a better set of moving average indicators than the 20, 50, and 200-day moving average that we normally see in other areas. Now it's hitting the 40-day moving average, and it probably could fall further in light of gold being the gold to oil ratio now falling to about 45. In the past, I considered the gold to oil ratio as the best indicator of the performance of gold producers in the next 3 to 6 months because companies sell gold and spend quite a bit on oil in order to mine this material out of the earth. Gold stocks at the moment, I think, are still quite generously valued. If you look at the gold stocks valuation ratio, which I created myself, that's still in the orange or overvalued zone. We can show that on the screen, the gold stocks valuation index. And you can see that it's pulled back somewhat, but it is still quite safely in the overvalued zone. Gold explorers and developers, I noticed today they pulled back quite a bit, and I still see value in those companies. The only worry that I have on gold stocks would be if the price of oil rises to $100 a barrel. Should the Strait of Hormuz indeed close, or that further strikes cause the Middle East to descend into further conflict, that could potentially threaten the operating margins of gold stocks, and we could see a pullback of the gold stock index, the ASX Gold Index, by back to even 10,000 points. So I'm cautious. I'm monitoring the situation very closely, but as long as oil remains below 100 and gold remains at current levels, I think gold stocks on the smaller end of town are good purchases, while producers I continue to be cautious about being too bullish until we see signs of some stability in this situation we're watching.
Thank you for watching my interview with Ausbiz. To learn more about our work, visit the Australian Gold Fund website. Also, check out Gold Hub Australia for live precious metals price quotes and insights. You can also sign up for our regular updates. And don't forget to visit the Ausbiz website. All our links are in the description. Please leave your comments and thoughts on where gold, silver, and the US dollar are heading below. Thank you very much. God bless.